Hey, and it's day 4. That's what it is on the decision pathway, and we're at day 4. And today is going to be a pretty short one, not too major at all. And I'm hoping, excuse me, that the internet will last out because it's looking, I don't know, if for some reason the internet just doesn't sit that well sometimes. Excuse me, when I'm using StreamYard and trying to use my iPad at the same time. But we're going to give this the best shot that we have. We've had some, just recapping, we've had some pretty amazing days. We've asked some pretty cool questions along those days. Remember, day 1, we said, what if you could ask better questions? Would this change how you're building out the culture that you have? And then it was like, we did some pretty cool things along the way. And I'm not going to go over them because I don't want to bore you with saying the same thing that we've said other days. So check it out. Like, it's still up and around for day 1. Day 2, we said, what if you could navigate the uncomfortable conversation? The funny thing is, as a human, we don't tend to go to the uncomfortable. We tend to want to have conversations that are very comfortable. In fact, I was talking to a friend today, and, we're pushing ourselves to get out there and to get involved in more networking things. That in itself is an uncomfortable conversation for me. I'm not so good at that yet. We've got to do some of these things that make us uncomfortable so that we can, get out there and do it different. Because if we keep doing it the same way, we are only just going to get the same results. So anyway, I talked about that a lot. I talked about your starting point, future thinking, shifting paradigms. Go check it out. It was pretty awesome. And day 3, we talked about, what if your decisions always moved you closer to the result you want? Would that be beneficial for you? Would it be amazing for those that are in your world, always knowing that you are shifting towards the bigger vision? It gets more exciting, by the way, when people around you see that you're achieving the bigger vision as well. So we went through a few things there about playing bigger, looking at the different levels of what in leadership, looking at the individual, looking at the collective, and then the global space. And yes, we did do that as well. We looked at the health of your ecosystem. So anyway, if you want to know more about those things, go check them out. They were day 1, 2, 3, and now we are on day 4. So what is the question for today that we're going to play in? This is actually, like I said, not going to be an extremely long one because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's absolutely important for moving decisions along, having different conversations, and moving that decision to action. Okay, so here's today's question for you. This is what it is. All right, let's have a look. Let's make sure we're working. Yep, we are. What if, let me just double check. What if you create a safe space? Why is this so important? Why is this so important in leadership? Why is it important when you're having different conversations? Why is it important when you're making decisions and the right ones fast? We've talked a lot about the decision. Well, it's the decision table. Making decisions is what we are all about here. But making the right ones, and I believe fast, if you want to play a bigger game, is so important. So why is what if you create a safe space important in your world? I think that it's sometimes easy to create spaces, or environments is another word for a lot of spaces, right? Where you do it because you have to. You do it because that's kind of the way that it's always been done. What if you could create a safe space that allows you to design what you need to design, and to also give the space for others to innovate in new ways. What would that need to look like? If you just think of it, so I always like it to come back to, oh, that's a great concept, that's a great idea, but how and what does that really look like in your own world? Well, just think about your office space. Maybe you have an office space, maybe you go into an office, wherever you go to work. What is that space like? Do you have a dark space? Do you like just have a cubicle, or do you have a beautiful office that overlooks the water, has maybe a beautiful backdrop, or your view is to look out at the water, land, whatever it is? I don't know about you, but I know that if I'm looking at things like water, beautiful environments, happy spaces that just make me feel good inside, it makes a difference to my productivity. And it really, truly does. And I think that this is sometimes when we're creating spaces. So let's have a look at this. I like to visually put things down for everyone. But so if I think of space or spaces, I think of environments. Yeah. And I think of, what is it that I'm creating? Is it a space I want to be in? Is it a space others love being in? And what is the experience I want you or me to leave with? These are three things that I think are absolutely important when you're creating spaces or environments. And let's use the example of an office. Let's use the example of a workspace. Is it really a space I want to be in? And I do things like, so random, but it's true. I do like my training area, and then I do my creative area, my design area. And what do I mean by that? That has literally where I have my big pieces of white paper or black paper, depending what it is. And I either have my white pencils or I have my colored pencils. And that is it on that side. And I have a lot of wall space so that I can put my Post-it notes up on the wall. If I could flip my camera around, and it's a little dark in my environment here because I have two offices, one here in Noosa, one which is in Queensland, Australia, and then one down in Sydney, Australia. And this is my Noosa one, which is not too conducive to doing night videos or whatever, but we've got enough light. You can see enough of me right now. And importantly for me is that you get to see the iPad. So I've got this little space here, and this is where I do my training. And behind me in the daytime, it is just this amazing and beautiful scenery of our dam at the back with beautiful trees and green grass and just water. And I love that. And every time I'm looking at my Zoom and I might be talking, having a conversation, having an interview, being in a meeting, I get to look into the screen and I see the reflection behind me. And you know what? If we talk about sometimes having to navigate those uncomfortable conversations, it never feels so uncomfortable when I look into the camera and I can see the background on something that I love being a part of. It just makes me feel that little bit less stressed and inspires and maybe even motivates me to keep going. And my other spaces, both in this office and my one down in Sydney, I literally have an area where I can sit. And in this case, I sit here on this long table on the other side of where my training is here. And I'm looking at that beautiful scenery. And I've got no computer on that side, no electronic. And that is literally to get back to pencil and paper. And in my space, that's really important. I like to think, I like to dream, I like to innovate, and that creates that opportunity. Now here, and I've done the same in my Sydney office, where I've got like seats. Here I've got this big lounge, and sometimes I come away from this area, I take my laptop over there, and I just sit there and do a little bit. Or I might sit there with my legs up, reading a book, going through a document, and doing that kind of work. So I have created spaces literally within my workspace. And there's reasons to it. There's reasons to it that are, I want to be in different areas for different reasons. And so they inspire me to do different pieces of my work. I love to bring people into my workspace too. So I make sure that I've created spaces that I can bring others in for different reasons. And what's the experience that I want, or I would love you to leave with if you come into my workspace? I really want you to think differently. I want you to feel creative. I want you to feel peaceful. So I'll have things like the greenery around me. And like usually in the daytime, you can see so much more greenery here. And in my office in Sydney, it's water, it's an industrial feel, it's a bit funky, and it creates an experience when you're there. What are the experiences that you're creating with the spaces that you're creating? Maybe it's on your home space. What is it when you turn up to home? Does it make you feel like you love being home? Does it make you feel like welcoming? Maybe you like to relax and chill out. Do you have spaces that you just do that? What are important to you in your home space to make it a healthy space that you love hanging in, bringing others into? And what is it in your workspace that you like to create? What does that need to look like for you? Think of things like that when you're creating spaces. And it needs to feel safe, not just for you, but for others that you're bringing into your space. So these things become really important. Remember, what is the space that you're creating? Is it that you want to be in? What is the space that you're creating that others love being in? And what is the experience you want to leave your space or you want others to leave in? That's how we create safe spaces. And a safe space is, I don't know about you, but can you think of that moment when you've not felt safe, where there's been fear or awkwardness, or what is it that's created an environment where you don't feel safe? None of us want that. So we need to create spaces that literally create a space, right? Can you see that? No, you can't. I get bad at doing that on here. Let me have a look. Sorry about that. Okay, so we need to create a safe space. Why safe? And really, what does that mean? I think that one of the things about safe space is that you can be your best, right? So when you're feeling safe, when you're feeling secure, when you're not feeling at risk, challenged, or anything like that, you are always going to produce the best you. Well, the same goes if you create a space, right, that it's going to create the best for others. Right? What's that need to look like? What are the conversations that you need? How do you need to, like, you know, that moment when you've got someone and they're just talking at you? And I think this is a way, often, I shouldn't say always, but it's been a way in the past for leadership to speak at, to go, hey, here's the way that you've got to be a leader. And if you're not doing this, then you're not a great leader. We have got to stop that and we've got to have conversations that are with. So even the way I think that we do things like communicate, right? How are we communicating to one another at the table? How are we communicating in our environments? Are we making sure, I don't know about you, but I remember with traveling so much in our lives, we were nomadic for years. And I remember those moments when you would arrive at a new hotel, a new Airbnb or a space, or travel in an airplane and be on a flight. And the difference between those that just welcomed you from the moment that you arrived made you feel safe, made you feel like, wow, I'm in the best place ever. And I think sometimes the way we communicate is not creating some of those safe spaces that we need. When you make it awkward, if you look different, sound different, or do it a different way, and you make sure that person feels that, knows that, that is not creating a safe space. I think part of what happens is when everyone looks the same and there's one person that really stands out, that doesn't feel safe. And so we need to be more aware of the environment we're building and the culture that we're choosing to build out. So what does that look like for you? How are you creating safe spaces? Maybe it's with your team. When we're communicating and there's not a safe space, what happens is that it makes it really difficult if there is one of those conversations where you've got to navigate that uncomfortable. For many, that safe space isn't there. And so you are never going to even start that conversation, let alone actually navigate through it. So when we're creating safe spaces, it can be the safe space for those that you're working with, maybe your other team members, maybe it's your team, maybe it's your partnerships, maybe it is those that are potential clients. You've got to create safe ways in which you communicate what your vision is, and hopefully the other person goes, hey, I want to come on that and be a part of that. I think more than ever, we have to create safe spaces. And safe is not that we all agree on everything. I don't think that I've said that quite frequently. Oh gosh, it's hard to talk tonight. Let me have a sip. Wait on. That may help me. All right. So we do have to create safe spaces that you feel safe in, to lead in, and that others that are in that space feel safe too. What would that need to look like for you? Are you doing that in what you're building out as your ecosystem? Or is there places in which you could do that better, more effectively? Like I said, this is not a long one tonight. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Know that it's really important when we're making decisions to have a place that you come from that you feel safe to make those decisions. And I do think there's one other thing, actually. Well, not one other thing. There's probably a couple of other things, but let me go here. I just want to draw. All right. We've run out of the black bit. All right. All good. Here's something that I think creates the space that doesn't feel safe. And it's this. Right? Judgment. I think that when you feel that you're being judged for what you're bringing to the table, then that creates a space which is not safe. It creates a space that there is a lot of fear. And this can be fear of things like rejection, things like undervalued, and the list goes on, right? Those are things that when you don't have a safe space, these things can dominate. And we know that this just escalates. It literally does the problems. And everything becomes, whoops, I don't think you can see that. So I'm going to write it here, problems, right? And then everything just becomes more drama. Chaos rules. And nothing gets done or achieved. Okay? So that's what happens, right, when there's a not safe space. And one of the things about a safe space has to be this: trust. And where there's trust, there cannot be judgment. And the other thing is there has to be transparency. I think that is just so important in a safe space. I also think that there needs to be, how do we say this? The capacity to evolve. What do I mean by this? Again, if we use that example in leadership, the old approach was that you were told these are the three things, the only way, principles that you can be a leader. The new way is, what if we look through different lenses, and as we continue this journey, we continue to evolve. Evolving is so important. And I think that one of the things a safe place allows us to do really well is evolve. And we have to do this more as leaders. Like I've said before, if we continue to do it the old way, if we continue to keep, being leaders the way that we have done, then we are not going to evolve. If anything, we're just going to see what's happening across the globe and just see that the gap is widening and continues to widen, right? So we've got to be able to trust. We've got to have a transparency and the ability or the capacity to evolve. And when you do that, I think that this really creates a safe space. There's so many more layers to all of this. And I'm going to be running a workshop. I've put the link in here. I'd love for you to check it out, and I'd love to see you there. And like I've said, even if there's just you there, one person, then I'm good. I'm still going to run it because I love what we get to talk about there. It would help you to, as a leader, to realize and recognize that you can, gain back your time by being more of an effective leader. You can have freedom in what you're doing and how you can innovate things in the spaces that you create when you're being more effective as a leader. And, we can then massively increase your growth and accelerate the impact that you have as you continue to lead. But, and there is a but, there were some things, and I've said this on some of the other days, that, we're not hearing so much about the hope of the future of leadership. And I really believe there's so much hope. There's so much future for us as leaders to continue to grow and to evolve and to leave behind footprints for generations to come that's really healthy. So how can you do that? What does that need to look like? Play a bigger game. What do I even mean by that? We will go down into way more details. I did a little touch on that the other day, and we keep going through these different decisions you can make that help to change the conversation. But you want to play a bigger game. You want to know how to bring the future into the now and to always moving towards that. You want to know how to, innovate new solutions at the table. You want to design out things differently. You want to be, okay to be not the same as everyone else, but pioneering something. Then you need to be in that room and at that workshop. So anyway, there we go. There's today's question was, What if you create a safe space? I hope this has been of some sort of help for you. And I look forward to, again, doing day 5 tomorrow. All right. Big love to you. I hope you, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you continue to create safe spaces. And that's what's going to change culture and build out a culture that is going to add value to the human race going forward. All right. Big love. See ya. Bye.